Hey, everybody. It's the 19th anniversary of 9/11. Wildfires are burning across the West. 500,000 people fleeing fires in Oregon. And in California, the fires consumed, just in California, almost 4,000 acres, I think, something the size of Delaware, Rhode Island, and Washington, D.C. combined. Wildfires burning, reflecting the state of America, because America's burning. Meanwhile, the NFL kicks off yesterday with fans in the audience, 20% capacity, and booing when the players line up for unity, reflecting, again, the division in America. And meanwhile, Donald Trump admits in a book that he openly gave to Bob Woodward, the reporter, a book called Rage, in an interview, that he intentionally downplayed the virus, throwing everybody's hands up in the air. But I'll tell you why. It's Rob Nelson Live.
Meet Rob Nelson, talk show host.
Because you got the 70s thing going there. My name's Rob Nelson. I used to have a talk show on Fox, a show on Fox News, but news in America is so produced. I don't care if you think it's left, right, center, fake.
You passed tougher legislation to deal with the paparazzi after what happened with you and your family.
I think it's very important that we focus on rebuilding.
Live, I'm Rob Nelson. It's dark here in California, and it's been dark all day because literally the sky is overcast with ash. It's gray skies. Yesterday, it was almost like an eclipse, which reflects the feeling you get in Los Angeles, because walking down the streets in Hollywood, right at the center by CNN headquarters, Sunset and Cahuenga, like one of the heart centers of Hollywood, dead. Barely anyone on the street. Skies overcast. It was like a holiday, because holidays in LA, nobody's here. It's like a holiday, but worse. It's just a down mood. And it's a weird day. It's 9/11. You almost forget it's 9/11. It's the 19th anniversary. Next year will be 20. And 9/11 was the single biggest thing that shook America in I don't know how long. I was alive for 9/11. I was an adult. I mean, 9/11 just blew people's minds off. The country just went kaboom. We thought, what the heck? We felt vulnerable. We felt weak. People said it was nothing like it since Pearl Harbor. I mean, it was massive. You'd never know today. 9/11 seems so small. So almost, I don't want to say insignificant, because the lives lost and the sacrifices made were terribly significant. But I'm saying when you think of it culturally, most people today would be like, yeah, like literally, it feels like we're in a 9/11 every day. You know, we've got protests and riots and massive division and a pandemic. Almost 9/11 almost seems contained. And 9/11 created unity. For a moment, America came together. It was this amazing moment. Like, you knew it wasn't going to last. It was going to last a week, 48 hours, 2 weeks. I remember I left right, 3 weeks after 9/11 to go shoot a show. And I was on an island in Fiji, a remote island. We barely had internet access. We'd use satellite phones, and we'd get information like every 48 hours, 72 hours. We'd get news from the real world. We're on this remote island, this group of like 80 of us packed on this island shooting a reality show that I was hosting. And honestly, like, we watched from a distance. We were like in a little bubble. And we were amazed watching the news come in, each new update, each new thing, each new image. When I got back, still the unity was there. America was united. We were going to pull together. You knew it wasn't going to last, but we were going to pull together for a moment. For a moment, bipartisanship went away. Not today. That's why this is worse. Going to run through a little roundup real quick today. So first thing on the list is Trump admitting to Bob Woodward in a series of interviews that he knew how bad the virus was. This right at the beginning. This is in February. How bad the virus was, and then he intentionally downplayed it to the public. And this came out, and the public and the media's gone ballistic. Let's be honest. The media goes ballistic when Donald Trump does anything, right? I mean, Donald Trump could burp and the media would go ballistic. I mean, literally, anything he says is going to trigger. But this is the big one. Before everyone loses their minds, think about it. Trump's no dummy. He knows Bob Woodward isn't his pal. He knows the media is not his friend. In the book, Woodward recounts that Melania comes into the room during one of the interviews. He did hours of interviews with him against the wishes of many of his advisors, and Melania comes in. It's an interesting moment because apparently Melania and Bob Woodward have some chat, a little back and forth, like friendly stuff, which goes to show you civility really does exist, even though the parties and the media, the political parties and the media like to pretend they all can't stand each other. In reality, when they're in their ritzy dinners and their things, they all laugh and shake hands. Keep that in mind. They're playing us. But she comes in and, jokes around, says hi to him. And Trump says with her in the room on the phone with Bob Woodward, I'm doing this interview with him. He's going to basically clobber me. It's going to be atrocious, but I'm doing it anyway. So it's not like he thought Bob Woodward was going to give him some positive spin. So he knew exactly what he was doing. And he admits that he was downplaying the virus. This is early, intentionally, because he says to him, it's deadly. It's worse than the flu. It's going to be bad. But he downplayed it because he said he wanted to keep people calm. So this is all about leadership. So before you think Trump is a nut, crazy, whatever you think about him, tyrannical, whatever, he made a conscious decision to downplay the virus to the public. And he admits to Bob Woodward, I made a conscious decision to downplay this to the public because I don't want people to panic. I don't want people to go nuts. So I intentionally said it's not as bad because if people go lose their cool, we'll all go, we are going like we are now. He got a lot of criticism. And again, I want to cut through that to get the partisan criticism aside. He made a decision as the president of the United States, the leader of the country, to go, it's better if I don't get people wound up. You can agree or disagree, but that's what that was. He's intentionally saying, not because he's not, people say if it wasn't for politics, he wouldn't have told Bob Woodward if he'd done it for political gain. People are saying he downplayed it for political gain. This actually probably proves he didn't. You don't go tell an interviewer, Bob Woodward, who's going to trash you, that you did that if you want to keep that a secret. He admitted it openly. I felt it was the right thing to do. I don't want people to panic. It's my job as a leader to keep people calm. I can't be out there, hey guys, we're all going to die. So it's like, I played it down a little. That's what I should do. It's what a leader should do. You can agree or disagree, but that's what that was about. Leadership, it's an interesting thing right now. Because a lot of people think Trump's a horrible leader. And a lot of people think he's a really good leader. He argued that's what a good leader does. I could make the case. That's what people are going to say. I'm distorting it, but yes and no. Franklin Roosevelt, World War II, Winston Churchill, World War II, Winston, they both put on the brave face. Franklin Roosevelt, people didn't even know he couldn't walk. If you're too young, you might not know that. Franklin Roosevelt couldn't walk. He had polio, could barely stand at a podium. He had to hold himself up, propped up, and he had things under him. He was exhausted. People didn't know the minute the thing was over because there weren't cameras everywhere. There were pictures. The press knew. They never said it. He'd plopped down in the wheelchair. He didn't want to depict a weak president who couldn't walk. Can you imagine today if a president hid the fact that he couldn't walk? Geez, people going crazy that Trump went and, to, the naval base hospital in Washington 6-8 months ago, whatever. And did he have a stroke? He's not telling us. We want to know everything now. But I'm just saying, strong leaders have often felt their job is to remain strong and keep us confident in a time of crisis. You can argue whether Trump's a good leader, period, but was he keeping us calm in a time of crisis? Is that what a good leader does? Meanwhile, Dak Prescott, the Cowboys, NFL, Dallas Cowboys quarterback, comes out and says recently that during the middle of this pandemic, he got really depressed. So depressed that he couldn't work out. He was anxious and depressed. Now, his brother committed suicide, but he said he got depressed before his brother committed suicide. So I get my brother committed suicide. I get what it's like and how that can make you feel depressed. But he was saying, I'm sure that made him even more depressed. But he said before it, the pandemic and all that was making him feel depressed. Two thoughts come to mind on that. But the main one to the leadership issue is that Fox Sports Skip Bayless criticized it and said, and he qualified it, said, no, you're going to hate on me for this. So it's a little like the Trump thing, because he's saying, I know what I'm about to say is probably going to get me in trouble, but I'm going to say it because I believe it. That he said, I totally understand clinical depression and people who have it. And I'm sensitive to that and realize it. Dak Prescott wasn't saying he has clinical depression. He was saying, I got depressed during the pandemic and it made me not even want to get up and go work out and anxious. So Skip Bayless says, I totally get clinical depression and totally understand what that would be. But I feel like in this case, when you're the quarterback in an NFL team, you're the ultimate leadership position. That's debatable. It's the world we live in. That if you're the quarterback of an NFL team, it's the ultimate leadership position. Like president, that's under that. But, general, that's under that. That's America. But But nonetheless, he says, I think that as a leader in that position, you can't come out and just say, I got depressed. I didn't want to go work out. You can't do that. You got to stay strong. It raises a really valid question about what is the quality of a good leader? And Dak Prescott came back and said, look, I actually think a good leader is genuine and real. It's interesting because the time we live in, we want genuine and real. Social media has made us want to be genuine and real, although oddly, social media has also made everybody pretend that there's something they're not, right? So everybody's posting a non-genuine, non-real version of themselves that they pretend is genuine and real because they don't want to show what they really feel. But more and more, some people are starting to push past that wall and go, I will be. I give Dak Prescott credit for being willing to go, I don't care, I'll say it, I'll be honest. And I do think genuine and real in a leader is important. I think it's one of the pluses and minuses of Trump. Trump's very real at times. His willingness to say the things he says. Don't confuse this, everybody, with hating Trump. Trump's the most transparent president we've ever had. People love to keep saying he's got these ulterior motives. I don't know what his motives are. Everybody's got ulterior motives. But he literally is the most transparent president we have ever seen. Not just the amount of access he gives to the press, not just the amount he talks to them, his social media accounts. He's constantly telling us what's inside his head. At 3 a.m. in the morning, he's just tweeting away stuff. There's no censor there. There's nobody. People used to think somebody wrote his tweets. Nobody's writing his tweets. Nobody's censoring his tweets. And if anything, Melania is probably once in a while coming in from her bedroom being, what are you tweeting again, honey? Go back to bed in your own, they sleep separate, right? But another story. But really think about it. I mean, he just, he's the most transparent we've ever seen with what he thinks and feels. He can't help himself. He tells you right away. He's no ability. It's like has no filter. So I'm all for that. I don't always like what I see in Trump's genuine and real, but I think he's pretty genuine, pretty real. And I think there's a lot hidden in there, but I think that's maybe part of him that just doesn't even come out because it's not there. And anyone in a public position, an NFL quarterback or a president, you have a public face, and at times you're not constantly showing it, and you're different when you're private. I mean, Chris Cuomo is an example of that. Chris Cuomo public, Chris Cuomo private. I mean, how many more tapes and clips do you need to see of Chris Cuomo to realize the guy's like a rageaholic? I mean, I worked at Fox News. I know things aren't always behind the scenes, aren't quite what happens when the cameras come on. But I just got to imagine Chris Cuomo's yelling at people all the time, shouting at staffers. I don't care. They're not going to come out and admit it till maybe later because they're all drinking the same Kool-Aid. But every time you see a clip of him, he's going rage. Yeah, the guy confronts him on the steps of the subway with a little camera, and he's like, I'll fuck you up. I'll take you down. I'll beat the crap out. He goes off. The guy, bikes up to him when he's with his family and, on the Hamptons or wherever it is. And, he's a Democrat. He's a big fan of, he's a big Andrew Cuomo fan. And he says, why are you out here without a mask? You're sick. And Cuomo goes rageaholic on him, even after the fact. And then you hear Cuomo in the tapes, if you listen to him, that Fox keeps releasing of his conversations with Michael Cohen, sidebar, everybody's in bed with everybody in the power circle. Michael Cohen, the Trump fixer, who was so evil and then became, of course, a hero of the left, is buddies with Cuomo. But he was buddies with Cuomo before while he was still the Trump fixer. And some of these tapes are from when he was still the Trump fixer. And Cuomo's advising him on how to, do an interview with CNN, with Aaron Burnett, and saying, don't trust the media. That's Chris Cuomo saying, don't trust the media. And here's how you spin your answers. And here's what you say to explain what you did, and blah, blah, blah. It's kind of comical. And then him going off on people who accused him of sexual harassment, Chris Cuomo, that is, and saying, F those people who accuse me of harassment, like so much for the Me Too thing, right? So my point is the public and the private face. I wish news anchors, I wish the Chris Cuomos would be more who they really are. Stop pretending you're somebody else. Sidebar to the person who I just popped up on, I don't know if it was IG, but yes, I would actually agree with that. What exactly are you supposed to do if you're the president? Tell everyone you're going to die? I agree with that, but I kind of digress a little off the thing. I'll get back to that. Public, private faces of leadership, but what makes a good leader? Seriously, what makes for a good leader? Is it genuine and real? I think so. I think Trump actually is pretty genuine and real. I mean, I like the genuine and real you see. I think he's probably right to have said, I wanted to downplay it. Maybe he could have been more compassionate and empathetic, but I get why you don't want to come out and just say, guys, this is horrible. We're all going to die. Who's going to follow you into battle? All right, guys, you know, you may know it. And my dad fought in World War II, won the second highest, award you can win after the Medal of Honor for bravery. He had a platoon. He was an infantryman. They were like fodder going in to be shot to pieces in the Battle of the Bulge. And, he told me once that he literally had to send his whole platoon in, and he knew basically, and that night they all died, but like one guy and my dad. And he was like, he was the lieutenant. He was like, I had to send them out. And I knew most of them weren't coming back. But you don't tell them that. Okay, guys, you go out there, and you're all dying. You go, come on, we'll do this. But you're hoping, but you kind of know, and they're hoping, but they kind of know. That's what you do, My dad lived. He also captured like a whole bunch of Germans, took a lot of risk on his own, but he survived. But most of his platoon didn't. So what makes a leader? Genuine and real, yes. Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci's viewed by many as a leader, especially in the left. I got mixed feelings about Fauci. I think he's a good epidemiologist. I really think he's like Eeyore. He's like Mr. Negative. And it's not his job. He's not the president. He doesn't have to be a cheerleader. But, his most recent comments, hunker down for the long haul. America's not going to open up till the end of 2021. Or my favorite of all, never underestimate ever the pandemic, and don't look at the rosy side. But literally, don't look at the rosy side. Don't try and look on the rosy side of things, he said. Whoa, that's pop. Don't. That's how people get hope. Seriously, if you're an addict, if you're depressed, don't bother trying to see light at the end of the tunnel here, folks. Realize this depression is as bad and worse than you think, and it's going to swallow you alive. Don't ever look at the rosy side. What kind of message is that to inspire people? Again, Fauci's job isn't to inspire, but that's his viewpoint. His viewpoint is this is bad. We should view it as bad. We should view it as potentially worse than bad, even worse than it could be. Don't ever underestimate it. And don't look at the rosy side. Don't try to see the rosy side of it. That's a hardcore imperial data, science guy who's also really, really clearly not much of an optimist or a ho-ho guy. His data may tell him that, and his data is telling him that, and he's saying, but I'm going to actually look at the worst case scenario over and over again and not I'm going to hope for the best, but don't look at the rosy side. But that's not the way I want a leader to be, and that's not how I really want to live my life. Is it the way you want to live yours? It's not the way I really want my country to be. And it's certainly not going to inspire. Man, if my stock market would tank, could you imagine if a president, pretend it's President Biden, came out and said, this pandemic is worse than anything you ever imagined, worse than anything you ever will imagine. Who knows how many of you it's going to kill? And by the way, don't look at the rosy side. I mean, first of all, people would be killing themselves. Second of all, the stock market would tank. The economy would go through the floor. I mean, it really wouldn't do much for the good of the country. But, they follow the science, right? They call it the science now. And think about that. The science. It's now like a thing. It's not science. Science is a lot of things. Science is a lot of information, a lot of things put together, a lot of theories, a lot of, hypotheses. A lot of outcomes that change. Science changes. But the science, as it's called now, the science, as if it's one little thing. It's like scripture, the science. I've said this before. But COVID's messing with all of us, right? Because COVID numbers go up and deaths go down. Not a shocker if you think about it. Said from the beginning. The minute they let people out, COVID numbers would go up. Why deaths going down? Well, probably because in the first part of the thing, the most vulnerable populations got sick and died. Mostly older people, all people with underlying conditions, as we now know from the CDC, except for like 6 or 7%. The most vulnerable population got hit and hurt worse. When we were all quarantining, which is sort of why it was sort of dumb, we're all quarantining, but the sickest people are still getting sick and the healthy people are just staying in. And when those healthy people come out, they're going to get sick too. They just won't die. That's what's happening. Not a surprise. Not a surprise that Florida has opened up. Tennessee's opened up. Even New York City's now opened up and they got hit the worst. California's still locked down. More people aren't dying in Florida. Just more people are actually living. It's a split nation, just like the NFL. But if you think about it, it makes sense because, people think COVID's political, and COVID is political. It's just COVID's political on both sides, you guys. Both sides are political. Yes, of course, Trump has been political with COVID. I mean, his push for the vaccine by election day. Sure, he wants a vaccine as soon as possible, but really by election day. Come on, we'll get it by election day. Of course, it's good for him. His mask thing clearly was political. He knew masks were a smart thing to do. Don't wear masks. It was a political statement. But it's political on the other side, too. The obsessive masking is political on the other side, too. And it's why Nancy Pelosi walks through a hair salon in San Francisco without a mask on. Well, if it's so deadly, what are you walking through a hair salon with a stylist who you clearly don't live with and is clearly not part of your entourage, unmasked with you? What's that about? It's about the fact that she pulls her mask off whenever she wants, but she makes sure it's on whenever it needs to be for the cameras. It's such hypocrisy. As was her claiming she didn't know the rules. You didn't know that salons weren't open to go inside in your own hometown, where you're also a congressperson and the highest elected legislator in America, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and you run that institution. You didn't know the laws in San Francisco, your hometown where you live. Seriously? I mean, that's harder to believe than anything. Of course she knew the laws. She was breaking them, just the way she wasn't wearing a mask. It's hypocrisy. Our leaders are hypocritical, and they're political. I mean, it's political because the LA County Health Commissioner said this week, it came out that, leaked out, and they admitted she said it, that schools would open in Los Angeles, K through 12, sometime after the election. Interesting. How about sometime after November 1st? No. Sometime before Christmas? No. Sometime in the fall? No. A month after Halloweenish? No. Sometime after the election. They claimed that was just a random date she picked. Who picks a random date of after the election if it isn't political? I'm going to join a gym sometime after the election. I'm thinking of going on a diet after the election. I am going to break up with my boyfriend, girlfriend after the election. Nobody picks the election except people who are making a political statement. They're going to open the schools after the election. COVID's been politicized by both sides, and everybody knows it. And that's why everybody distrusts. And we're so divided. The NFL just reflects that division, I mean, you have an opening game, Kansas City, against Houston. Houston doesn't take the field during the national anthem, and Kansas City does. One player kneels. And then they all come out and line up in the middle of the stadium and lock arms in a show of unity. And fans boo. Fans booed. The NFL used to be the least political thing in the world. It just was come together, have fun. Now, and I don't know why fans are booing. Fans are booing because they are pissed that it's politicized, or because they don't like the unity stuff, and that the NFL's become so politicized with support the protests. I mean, they came out with a statement. And that statement was that about 10 great ideas, one of which was we're going to end racism. Like flash news alert. You're not ending racism. I hate to say it. You're never ending racism. I mean, not in this world, not on this planet. I'm not being negative here. I'm just being honest. It's like saying end hate, end greed, end lust. It just doesn't happen. You can try to eliminate its effects. You can get rid of the institutional aspects of it. You can try to give people awareness. But racism, like hate, like greed, like lust, it's always a version of it's going to be there. But again, it's this lofty notion, end racism. It just makes me go, come on, how about we actually fix problems? That's what our town hall is going to be about in Jacksonville next month. Bringing people together, all divergent voices, from the police to the protesters, to the schools, to the big churches, to business leaders, conservative, liberal, white, black, Asian. Bring everyone together. Hispanic, not a lot of Hispanics in Jacksonville, but bring everyone together. The whole community, black, white, Latino, Asian, rich, poor, political, pro-Trump, Biden, progressives, and talk through the differences with one goal. How do we make change? Because protesting's great. With your high-paid salaries on an NFL field going end racism is great. And a lot of those players, I'm not saying, a lot of those players came from rough backgrounds and can speak to their own truth of their history and their past. But most people out there protesting aren't. And at the end of the day, you're not going into inner city communities. You're not going into impoverished communities, underserved communities, and actually fixing the problems they have. It's like my guest said last week, the bishop who'd been a former cop saying, I hate when every black man gets killed by a white cop, but it's a tiny number compared to the number of black kids and people that die every day in our communities. Those are all black lives that matter. Those are all black lives that are lost, every single one of them. And that's real violence and destruction. And those communities need real help, infrastructural change. They need economic change. They need better schools. They need better hospitals. They need an economic base. They need opportunity. All that is change that has to happen. So how about that over the protests? Everything is political today. Everything is political. And by the way, even Kansas City, with the whole protest and the whole thing, in case you don't know, the name of the football team of Kansas City is the Kansas City, wait for it, the Kansas City Chiefs. Like as in fire chiefs. No, actually as in Indian chiefs. I don't know. Does that a name have to go? It's not as bad as the Redskins, but Chiefs, actually, again, I think Chiefs could be a good word, but you're basically appropriating, if nothing else, and cultural appropriation is out right now. And you're not allowed to wear headdresses or face paint into the games because it's considered culturally appropriating, but you can still be the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're all going to line up and protest for unity, despite the fact that the land you're standing on was stolen from indigenous people called the Native American Indians. But you're the Chiefs fighting in their name. See, it's just all hypocritical. It's just all and around. It's why people are divided in their camps. And I see, wrap this up by saying we got two Americas right now. Yes, rich and poor, absolutely. The elites who could survive a pandemic hands down easy, including all your politically elected leaders who do what they want, live the way they want, and don't stay locked up in their little boxes like they made everybody else do. Don't go to the beach on Memorial Day or Labor Day. Stay home. Stay in your packed hot apartment with your 3 kids. For the team, take one for the team. We're going swimming. The nice house. They're all in it. The political class, the leadership class. Don't buy that either side's really got your back. But we're two Americas, the one that's opening up and the one that's holding back. And we're going to keep seeing two Americas happen as we move into the fall. And I'm right now living in the one that's going slow. I'm going to be moving in the one that's not. We'll spend some time there. But honestly, we'll see what happens, because as this happens, as more happens, we're going, not COVID deniers. We have people just going, enough. I'm just done with it. I'm just done. I'm going to put my mask on. I'm going to go out. I'm going to live. And the others who are going to hold back, and we'll see which takes stronger hold. And we'll see what happens after Election Day. But let me wrap this up by saying everything is political today for sure. 9/11 united America 20 years ago, 19. COVID has divided us. And that's a lot to do with who we are today. It's not COVID. It's who we are as a country, how we think, and why we need to actually come together and find some common ground. Okay, that's my rant. I did a special rant today. I didn't have a guest, an unusual Friday. I've got a really special guest next Friday. Bruce Crafty is on the road. He's like mobile producer today. Hey, Bruce. There he is. All right, Bruce.
Hey, Rob.
Bruce, how you doing?
Good.
Good. So is that your dad's high school yearbook picture?
Yeah, might as well look like it. We kind of look the same. Yeah.
Is that from 1950, 60?
Yeah, no, 20 years ago, 15 years ago.
Wow, look at him. Look at Bruce. He looks like he's like a 1940s entertainer. I'm here for the week. I'm here all week. Come on.
It's
Bruce.
a baby. Yeah, it's a baby face. It's like one of those,
Come on, give me something better, Bruce. Come on.
It's like a doo-wop photo from like I'm a boy band from the 50s or 60s.
Come on, give me something better. Come on, is that the best? Okay. Look at that. This is like a late night show. This is the young Bruce. Can you believe that was the same person? Literally, is this the older you, Bruce?
Yeah, this one's like maybe 6 years ago.
This older Bruce looks actually younger, but this looks like the modern day Bruce that I know. Look at that. Well, you don't quite look like that now either. He's hiding because he's on the road. That's the Bruce. Okay. And this was Bruce. This was Bruce when he was in seminary, and was going for his past to be a pastor, And geez, they all look like three different people, Bruce. This is your family.
It just keeps getting better.
And this is who Bruce dreams about late at night being. Captain America, Bruce Crafty. Here he is,
I'm always saving the day. Yeah.
Bruce Crafty, Captain America. I love it.
Well, you like Crafty. I think you like Crafty better than anything. So there you go.
Oh, and there we have it. My favorite, the mac and cheese, the best mac and cheese in the world. Kraft mac and cheese. Crafty. Let's just for a second. We're wrapping up here. We didn't get a lot of audience interaction today, I don't think.
No, I got polls good to go though.
You got polls.
Yeah, like one I wanted to put up was like, like you were talking about the NFL, and I was like, should the games have the fans before there's any progress with the COVID vaccine?
Right. That's a great question. What do you think?
I think it's asking. I think it's a little slightly hypocritical, and B, asking to stir the pot because it's gathering people in crowds is always an issue.
Yeah, and my point that I would agree with you. There's there's total hypocrisy because you do that and considered okay. If you don't, wait a minute, we're gonna get this in a second. If you don't do that, if you do, it would be considered bad. Wait, on Trump rallies, do a lot of social distancing or wearing masks. People in the stands had to have one when they win. But the thing we're gonna see cities, and some cities aren't gonna have fans. It's gonna be like. Everybody's going to decide on their own. Let's take this question up here. Then we'll get back to you. What we're doing with that. So, Monkey Arms, comparing black on black crime to cop on unarmed crimes of false equivalency. Okay, Monkey Arms, I appreciate that question. I'm going to tell you why that's not true. And again, note that what I've always believed is true, but in the conversation I had last week, the bishop who was saying it was black and was a former police officer for many years. And they were minimizing that there is violence against black people and referred to scenarios where he, had been pulled over before as a civilian when he had been a cop and could see the look in the cop's face. The cop showed us, and so no one's denying that, including him. But my point has always been, and his point was, the number of people still black is a tiny number. It's not okay, but it's a tiny number. And when you say all Black Lives Matter, and yes, police brutality has to end, that is true. But if you really want to care about the death of black lives, if it's black lives that matter, not police brutality, police are brutal to non-black people, then worrying about it, people get caught up in a political black on black violence. Not about whether it's black on black violence. It's not condemning the people in the community for having black on black violence. It's that black lives are being lost in these cities. The media pays almost attention to it. The numbers are astronomical, and that's just from gun deaths, stabbing deaths. It's not counting what's actually happening in those communities, and that may be the result of systemic racism or systemic inequalities, I would say, actually, than racism. Some of it started from racism. Massive economic and social inequalities that have left in inner city, impoverished, underserved communities, which are often black or are black, with bad schools, bad tax bases, underfunded hospitals, too many guys going to prison, young men going to prison because there aren't opportunities. So they do make bad choices, and they also often got excessive sentences, but they also made because that's what happened. You don't have better choices. People make bad choices. When you don't have opportunities, people bad opportunities. You don't have good ones. And creates a violence within a community, which it is our job, all of us, to fix. And my point is that's what needs to be fixed more than our obsession with focusing on police who kill. In case sometimes it's blatantly wrong, or in sometimes talk to police officers of all colors. Many would say that wasn't a unjustified shooting. It was justified. In cases, it wasn't a racially motivated thing. Sometimes it is motivated. Floyd really was. Those don't matter. Those aren't important. Be honest. That's a tiny number of people. So if you're really worried about black lives, actual black lives, death count, impoverished communities, massive, and that again needs to be fixed, addressed by all of us. That's my point. They're not, cops should stop being brutal. They should. We need massive change in how police are taught and how police are trained, all kinds of things. But let's put the focus needs to be. Okay, Bruce, I got on another crazy rant. We're trying to wrap this up. So, Bruce, Crafty, what is it like? What are our streams? Mac and cheese, Crafty. We're streaming mac and cheese. How's it looking? What do we do here, Bruce? It's pretty cool what we've got up now, where we're at.
Yeah, so we have multiple Twitter accounts, multiple Periscopes, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook groups, Facebook pages, your Facebook profile, Instagram, Reddit. We have ViewStub. Yeah, we're going everywhere pretty much.
Yeah, and we do it all at one big live stream. In case everybody on any platforms don't know that, we're streaming to all of you at once. Right?
Yeah, all
I'm
of them.
waiting for my comment bias.
Say again? You were cutting up.
I said I'm waiting for information bias. Streaming to everyone simultaneously on all these platforms. And, we can get back all of them. People can call in any of them, right? Like call in, join on a video link or an audio link.
Yeah, we'll be having call-ins within a month or two. You'll be able to call a telephone number hotline and join in on the show.
That's awesome. So now, again, what platforms are we on?
So Facebook in general, Twitter, Periscope, YouTube, Twitch, ViewStub, Instagram, and Reddit, and TikTok.
Simultaneously, going to all of them. Love Table's interaction and actually calling, which will be awesome because I want more and more interactivity. This show is all about creating interactivity. So I'm psyched about that. I know you are too. We're doing some really cool. This is a really fun, really interactive. Jacksonville in a month, we are going to be doing a massive live interactive town hall, which we'll stream on this, and we'll stream shows before it and leading up to it. And I want people across the country to be part of it. And Monkey Arms 11's comment, I want those comments and questions. I'm not trying to shut you down by saying I don't agree. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I'm trying to put a different perspective on why I think what I think. But I want the dialogue to happen because I think, Monkey Arms, you and many other people have a valid viewpoint in saying I see it as a false equivalency. I'm going to tell you what I think not, but that's a discussion we need to be having. Two sides can come together and disagree. We may change our minds, we may not, but we actually can try to find where we have common ground. I'd say in the case of Monkey Arms, where we probably agree, we have, if I'm not wrong, Monkey Arms is, you may think it's a false equivalency, I may think it's not. We both agree that police brutality needs to be put in check, and we need to put a focus on that because it happens too often. Again, to Black people of color, disproportionately perhaps, but it happens too often, period. And we can also agree that the Black lives being lost in the impoverished communities needs to be addressed because we need changes that prevent structural economic growth opportunities, investments that change that. Coming together as a community to do that. I bet we both agree on that. All right, everybody, really appreciate you watching. I've got a really special guest coming up next week. So on Friday evening. So I hope you'll tune in. I'll tell you during the week who it is when I'm posting on Sills. I don't know. We're so divided. Let's just see if we can maybe find a little way to come back. September 11th brought us together. COVID divided us. Can we try to reunite a little bit with 50 days before an election? I don't think so, but I'm not, because I'm like Dr. Never going to underestimate how far we can. But as said, yes, agree, exclamation point, I am never going to stop looking at the positive side and going, you know what? I think we can find common ground like we just did here. I'm Rob Nelson. It's Rob Nelson Live.